1842, and it's Charles Dickens who sails the ocean blue. He lands in New York, already a literary rock star back in Britain. But here, he's ready for something different. Not just stories, drinks, American ones. Cold, bright, boozy, totally unlike anything being poured back home in London. Welcome back to History in a Glass. I'm Josh, your guide in this tipsy time machine through history. Today, we're tagging along with Dickens on his American drinking tour. This was a trip that introduced him to cocktails that would shake up drinking habits across the pond. These drinks had ice, balance, and a little flair, and we're making two of them. The Gin Sling and the Whiskey Cobbler, inspired by a drink he loved, the Sherry Cobbler. Same style, but with more kick. So grab your ingredients and let's drink like literary legends. So Dickens hits the US, and like any good writer, he takes notes, literally. That trip becomes the basis for American Notes, his account of America in 1842. He rants about wild politics, bad hygiene, loud conversation, and spittoons everywhere. But he also finds something worth noting, the drinks. Now Dickens is no stranger to booze. Back home, he threw punch parties, drank hot pearl in the winter, and wasn't shy about his love for a good tavern. But here, he found something new. The Gin Sling was one of the first to catch his attention. He wrote about it describing it as refreshing. Now for Dickens, that's high praise. Compared to the heavy, boozy punches of Britain, this was light, chilled, individually made, and easy to knock back. So let's start with this drink, the Gin Sling. So as usual, we're gonna try to make this the way that Dickens probably drank it. Simple, spirit-forward, and refreshingly cold. So, about the gin. If you're thinking London Dry, that wasn't what they were pouring in 1842 New York. Back then it was all about Holland gin, or Genever, a maltier, fuller-bodied spirit from the Netherlands. Cocktail historian David Wunderich points out that Old Tom gin really wasn't available in the US until the 1880s, so Genever is the right call here. As far as ingredients for the Gin Sling, pretty simple. We need 2 ounces of Holland gin. I'm using Bols Genever, which is a great modern version of what Dickens likely encountered. According to modern standards, Genever is not technically gin. It's really the precursor to modern gin. It's closer to unaged whiskey than what we think of as gin today. If you can't find Bols, other good options include Dopf and Irion or Deep 100 Genever. But avoid London Dry if you're aiming for historical accuracy. So we'll also need a teaspoon of white sugar, about an ounce of water to dissolve the sugar and open up the spirit. This recipe calls for a small lump of ice. And then lastly, we're gonna need some fresh nutmeg grated on top. So let's build the Gin Sling. We'll start with our 1 ounce of water, our teaspoon of sugar. Now we're just gonna give this a stir until it's dissolved. This is how they sweeten drinks before simple syrup became a thing behind the bar. But it's a big deal. It should mellow the Genever and round out the tastes. Now the water and sugar is mixed together, we need to add our small lump of ice. Bartenders had to carve their own ice cubes, so even a small lump back then could be what we'd call an oversized ice cube today. For this drink, I'm just gonna use 2 regular ice cubes. So in the 1840s, ice in drinks was still kind of a flex. It made the cocktail feel modern. Dickens probably didn't have much experience with ice drinks back in England unless he was at a very fancy event. So getting something this cold in an American bar, it would have stood out. It might even explain why he described it as refreshing. Next, we'll add our 2 ounces of Genever and give it a stir to chill. We'll stir this for about 30 seconds or so. I've only had a few experiences with gin. I was a little concerned when I saw that this drink was so gin forward, but learning that this may taste closer to whiskey has me excited to try it. Now we just need to grate a little nutmeg on top, because even after 100 plus years, some of these colonial habits die hard. So here we have an 1840s Gin Sling. Let's give it a try. Cheers. I get it now. This is crisp, it's a little sweet, and way more approachable than I expected. It's totally different from today's gin, in my opinion, in a great way. If I just got off a boat from England and somebody handed this to me, I'd be impressed. Refreshing indeed. So if you caught episode 4, I mentioned that Dickens loved the Sherry Cobbler. He raved about it. He even wrote it into Martin Chuzzlewit, one of his novels. But here's the thing, cobbler wasn't just a single drink, it was an entire style, and bartenders were quick to remix it with whatever spirit was on hand. Sherry, brandy, rum, and yes, whiskey. So today we're making the Whiskey Cobbler. Same format as the Sherry Cobbler, just a little stronger. Cobblers were revolutionary. They popularized crushed ice, flashy garnishes, and straws. It was the first cocktail you didn't just slam. You sipped it, slowly, through a straw, in a glass full of ice, garnished with a bunch of fruit. That was the vibe. So here's what you'll need to build a Whiskey Cobbler. So Whiskey Cobbler, pretty straightforward with ingredients. We're gonna start off with 3 ounces of rye whiskey. So I'm using Rittenhouse rye. It's bold, bottled in bond, and it's a nod to Pennsylvania's deep rye whiskey history. Plus, I was actually just in Rittenhouse Square in Philadelphia, so this just felt meant to be. Alternatives include Old Overholt, Pikesville, even Wild Turkey would work great. Just look for something around 100 proof with a spicy backbone. We'll need a tablespoon of white sugar, a teaspoon of cold water, a bunch of crushed ice, we need some orange, and some fresh berries. And don't forget the straw. We'll start off by mixing our sugar and our water together in a glass and stirring until it dissolves. If you have simple syrup, you just go ahead and use simple syrup here. So now we're gonna add a little bit of ice, but we'll go ahead and fill this up all the way a little bit later. Next are 3 ounces of whiskey. Rye was the go-to in the 1840s, especially in cities like New York and Philly. Bourbon was still more frontier at that point. We're gonna give this a gentle stir just to mix everything up. Now the original Sherry Cobbler was shaken with orange slices. The Whiskey Cobbler skips that. The fruit is just for garnish. The whiskey carries the flavor. So now we can go ahead and fill the remainder of the glass with ice. I think that looks good. And now it's time to garnish. And you can actually use however much fruit you want. I'm gonna make mine look extra fancy. We just need our orange slice. Last step is just to add our straw. It's tradition. This drink wasn't meant to be slammed, it was meant to be sipped. It's cold, sweet, and meant to be enjoyed slowly. So here we have our Whiskey Cobbler. Let's go ahead and give this fancy whiskey drink a try. Cheers. No surprise that with all this ice, it's really cold. It does have a little bit of sweetness to it, but that rye definitely comes through. Although Dickens loved the Sherry Cobbler, this Whiskey Cobbler is actually pretty good. It's a little bit stronger than the Sherry Cobbler, but I'm into it. I definitely can see why bartenders added whiskey to the cobbler roster. So what did we learn? Well, Dickens wasn't just drinking, he was discovering. From the Gin Sling to the Sherry Cobbler, he brought back stories and flavors that helped shape the next era of drinking. And while we can't say for sure that he sipped on a Whiskey Cobbler, we know bartenders of the time were already playing with the formula. What started off as sherry and fruit turned into a whole genre of refreshing, ice-cold drinks. 2 cocktails, 1 literary legend, proof a good drink and a good story can travel far. If you like this one, hit like, subscribe, and if you have one, drop your favorite 19th century cocktail in the comments and we can explore that in a future episode. So until next time, drink responsibly, or at least drink historically.